Hi friends, I'm Sherry and this is Gardening in the North, and I want to talk about pest control. So I've noticed since moving to this property and starting this garden that there has been a significant increase in cucumber beetles compared to my old property. And so the first year that I was here, I couldn't grow a cucumber. The second year, which was last summer, I think maybe I got 5 or so. It was something small like that. Zucchini, I think I might have got less than that. They have been demolishing my plants. And so there are a few things that I'm going to do different this year. One, I am going to plant my squash plants and my cucumber plants later. So I'm gonna wait probably about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Normally I would do it within that 10 days after my last frost date. And so they usually say you should wait 10 days after that because you never know if you're gonna be hit with a hard frost. Normally I kind of watch, and when I get to day 5, I start looking ahead at the schedule, the weather forecast, to see what it's gonna be like. And then I make that decision and I risk it or I don't, one or the other. This year, I think I'm going to wait until at least May 2-4 weekend or after the long weekend before I plant those out here. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be hanging those yellow sticky sheets all over so that they attract those cucumber beetles away from my garden. But the third thing, and the reason for this video, is I am going to be installing some insect netting in the form of a hoop house. And so I'm going to use 4 of my beds and build 4 hoop houses, and I thought, why not share that process with you? So let's take a quick minute to talk about the supplies that I'm going to be using, and then as I'm using them and building it, I'll explain why I've chosen to use that. So first thing you're going to need, make sure you buy some insect netting. You can use tulle as well. I think I have some tulle inside that I'll probably end up needing to use on one of the beds because I won't have enough of the insect netting. I got this off of Amazon. I don't have my glasses on. I think it is, I think it's 10 feet by, no, I just saw that. 8 feet by 33 feet. And I think this was, I want to say it was like 15 bucks. It was pretty cheap. And I think I should be able to do 2 beds with it. Fingers crossed that I did my math right. You're going to need a drill, and you're going to need some brackets to hold the hoops on. I also bought some electrical tape. I got this at the dollar store. The reason for this is I am going to be using this garden pole, and I'm going to be attaching the 3 hoops that I'm going to be putting on each bed. I'm going to put this at the top, and I'm just going to use that electrical tape to attach them all together. It's just going to make them a little bit more sturdy, and that's what I want. I want to make sure that if there is any kind of wind, any kind of rainstorm, anything like that, that my hoop house isn't going to be destroyed. So I did that. I also bought some of these skinny little bamboo sticks, and so my thoughts are I'm going to stick these into my garden bed down as far as they will go, and then I will take my tubing that I have and I will stick this onto those bamboos, and again, just to give them that little bit of extra stability that I want, make sure that nothing is moving. Since we're talking about tubing, there are a couple things that you can use. You can go to your hardware store and you can get tubing out of the electrical aisle or the plumbing aisle. From my research that I've done, I understand that if you buy it out of the electrical aisle, it's a little bit more expensive, but it lasts a little bit longer. I'm going to be using this 1/2-inch tubing. I'm not sure how long this is going to last me. This is left over from the build of our home, and I have it. I don't know what else I would use this for, so I'm going to use it in this project, and if it lasts me a couple seasons, then I'm ahead of the game. See, the other thing that you're going to need are, I don't even know what this is called, but this is what I've been using to cut the piping. I don't know what it's called. What else do I have in here that I'm going to need? I think that might be it. Measuring tape. You want to make sure that you are measuring your tubing for the size that you want. So I have two sizes of beds. The bed that I'm going to be showing you how to build this on is 4 feet by 8 feet. I'm only building the hoop house 6 feet. So you'll notice as I'm building it that there is going to be some space on either end. That's how I want it to be, because when I'm ready to plant my squash plants that are vining, they will go on the ends and they will not be inside the hoop. So this bed is 4 feet. So I've decided that I'm going to make my hoops 9 feet long, whereas on the thinner beds, I'll be making adjustments and I might only do 7, maybe 8. I'm gonna cut it, or I'm gonna hold it first and see if I like the height of it, and then I'll make my decision. So let's get started. Here I am measuring the length of tube that I need with the measuring tape. I highly recommend that you wear gloves. I did not, and thankfully I didn't cut myself, but I would prefer if you did wear gloves to ensure that you don't cut yourself after watching one of my videos. So I used the other tubing to cut the rest of the lengths and then inserted my bamboo sticks where I wanted them, making sure that they were equally centered. After I inserted those bamboo sticks into the bed, I then pushed the tubing over top of them, giving that hoop that stability, making sure that I placed them firmly in place. As you can see here, I'm now attaching the brackets to the bed. I'm placing that bracket over that tubing, and then I'm just using some small screws and screwing them into the bed, making sure that they're secure. Here's a look at how I attached that gardening pole to my hoops using that electrical tape in a figure 8 format. Hey guys, so this is not a case of a costume change mid-video. My alarm went off and I had to run to pickleball. So it's been about 6 days since I last did anything with this project. I thought today that we would plant out the cauliflower that I have for this bed. I have to amend the bed a little bit. I haven't done anything to it since last season, and this bed was one of the new beds from the beginning of last season that we installed. So I want to make sure that it has some good soil for those cauliflowers to go into. So we're going to do that. We're going to add some new compost, some worm castings. I'm going to plant the cauliflower, get the netting on these hoops before those moths come out and start laying eggs in here. And then we are going to water it. And I'm going to show you how you can water it after you've installed the netting. So a couple other things that I should have mentioned that you need for supplies. I bought these, what are they called here? Landscape anchor pins. So I'm going to be using these to anchor down the netting. You don't have to use these. If you plan on lifting that netting up a lot, you can just use a 2x4, a log, a rock, whatever it is that you want to use to hold it down, you can do that. I think the amount of cauliflower that I have, I should be okay to anchor that netting down without having to open it up and get in there very often. The other thing I'm going to be using are these clips that I got at the dollar store, and I'm just going to be adding them onto the netting as well as these hoops afterwards. It's just an added precaution because my garden is up on the highest level of our property and it can get a little windy up here. So just want to make sure I have that added protection to make sure that I don't come out here one day and my netting is gone. So let's get started. Let's amend this bed and get planting. Here I'm just spreading out the soil that's already there. Now I'm adding some fresh compost to the bed, making sure it's evenly spread out. Next is worm castings, which is a great fertilizer for any of your plants. I'm now laying out all the plants, making sure there's enough space in the bed that I've allotted for. And you'll notice that I'm putting in a handful of compost into each hole.
Adding mulch to your garden is really important. It helps to keep the moisture locked into the soil so that it doesn't dry out on you. Normally I would add wood chips to the top of my beds, but because this bed is fairly new and I know that the soil is going to drop and that I'm going to need to add more soil, I'm just using wood shavings that can easily be mixed in. I tied a knot at the end of the netting in order to keep the whole netting as one piece. I've seen other folks cutting 3 pieces and attaching a piece to each of the end hoops and then wrapping over the bigger piece. I wanted to make sure that I had one solid piece so that it's easy to lift off at the end of the season and keep for next year. Now I'm just making sure that all the sides are even before I pin them down. The great thing about this system is that the water will go straight through the netting. Whether that is rainwater or you're watering it with a hose like I am, you don't need to lift the netting up to get your plants wet. So here is a final look at the insect netting hoop house. You will notice that I've left some spaces. I think I mentioned in the first part of this video that the reason I'm doing that is because I am going to be planting some squash there. And so I will decide whether or not that needs extra netting at the time of planting. You'll also notice that I've put in those clips that I mentioned, just like that, just for a little added support in case there is any heavy winds. For those of you wondering what kind of cauliflower I planted today, I planted the graffiti cauliflower, which is a beautiful purple color. I also did a sunset, which is a orange cauliflower, and then I did the snowball white one. So I'm really excited to watch these grow underneath this netting, safe from any pests. Thanks for spending your time with me.